Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Scorpion Movement podcast, episode 23. And for this episode, we have a very special guest on, Hugo Daniel. Hugo Daniel, I believe it is pronounced, and he comes from
That's right.
Gothenburg, Sweden, where he has been performing live and doing all sorts of recordings for the past several years. He's been broadly associated with several scenes of music over there in Sweden, and we're very proud to have him on. And I actually managed to find Hugo through TikTok, where we had shortly conversed, and I invited him on to the podcast, which I'm very glad that he was able to make. I'm not sure if I'm getting like the full picture of where Hugo's style originates, so I'll very quickly ask him to self-describe himself. So, how would you describe the kind of music that you make? How would you describe the recent releases that you've been putting forwards? The sort of path or trajectory that you've been going down recently?
Yeah, sure. Um, I'd say my most recent releases, I've really been traveling down the alternative rock kind of sound within the grunge genre, I'd say. And that's something that I have keep really close to heart. I grew up listening to grunge music, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, and all that stuff. So I really feel like I've found my own path within the grunge genre, as well as adding some new influences to it. So yeah, that's basically what I'm doing now.
Yeah. So for the past few days, when I've just been going over your music catalog because I happened to do so right before I even invited you on, I
Yeah,
noticed that your most recent release was Miss Bonita,
yeah.
and there was like a very heavy kind of influence on that, I would say, where it's just like it's very like alternative rock. You can
Hmm.
definitely see that like seeping through. Not, I'm not even talking about like the actual guitar instrumentals or anything happening in the background. I'm talking about like the way that it sounds. And when going past over your previous catalog, I found songs like "Hate Me" and "How Would I Know." And
Yeah.
like a personal favorite of mine, I would say was "Somewhere in the End," and I believe that was
Oh,
released quite
nice.
a while ago.
Hmm.
So it's interesting when I'm just sorting through all this music, because there definitely is like a grunge influence, but I see you're pivoting more to like the alternative rock scene, the kind of
Yeah.
stuff that would get popular like nowadays in the UK or in America. So I definitely see that your style has changed a little bit over the years. Would you say that you had all these influences like in your mind to begin with, and you wanted to try a little bit of everything, or would you say like just making this music, it showed you like possible new ideas and branches that you could go down?
I'd say to begin with, I tried a lot of different styles. Um, I started off within the almost like funky music.
Hmm.
Um, if you listen to some of my releases from like maybe 2, 3 years ago, you'll see that there's a lot of funk influences in it.
Yep.
Um, but I'd say like the this recent year or the past 2 years, I've really been traveling down more of the rock genre, and it's definitely been a fun journey, and I think I've really, by experimenting with different kind of sounds and different kinds of music, I really developed my uh, not my skill just as a songwriter and as a musician, but basically just finding my own sound and uh, being able to do something, create something on my own that's really sticks out from the masses. And that's always like the main plan as an artist to really do something different, right?
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
definitely found like this sort of like first for uniqueness that comes across in your music because you could like draw comparisons between different artists, but I don't think you could like remotely like closely compare it because your
Mm.
style, it's just it takes influence from all over the place, which is quite a good thing. But there is
Yeah,
also
for
quite a bit
sure.
of like irreverence in the music that you make, and I use that term in the best positive way.
Mm.
Here on our podcast, we actually go down a lot of routes we call like dissident. So these are things that are like anti-mainstream. These are things that, address the broad sort of coalescence of like culture and art. So we go down like how what's happening currently in the world is affecting the kind of art that people make, how the art or the music or the literature that people make goes back out into the world and how it predicts what's going to happen. And in yours, I found that you tend to verge on the aims of like simplicity, and
Mhm.
also there was another theme that I found that was just sort of like collaboration. So I also found that you're signed with this label. You're a huge participant in it. It's called like Rage Inc. And
Rage
there's
Inc. Yeah,
also
that's
a
correct.
band that I believe you're in that is also, part of that entire umbrella. And I
Yeah,
went down. You guys have a lot of stuff put on there. Like
yeah.
you're really like cataloging all the stuff that you've done. But when describing it, when you go down your social media and you look for your recent uploads, there really is a very huge energy of it. Like, oh, just look at it and come and find out for yourself. Even on your Spotify page, there's a thing that says, I used to have a lot of text here, but nobody's gonna read all of that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's very different from how a lot of like up and coming artists tend to market themselves,
Uh-huh.
where they describe to everyone what they are and what kind of music they produce, and you
Yeah.
listen to it and you're just like, this is totally different from the way they described it.
Mhm.
So you seem to like verge on that thing of like, yeah, come out and find what music fits you best, what you like, what is best for you, what you resonate with, and then I'll just make more of that shit. You don't really think
Yeah.
like, oh, I'll self-describe myself, and this is the way that you have to see me.
Yeah.
So that is something that I didn't see in a lot of up and coming musical artists that tend to broadcast themselves on social media platforms, which is
Mhm.
quite interesting to me. So just a little bit of that history. How did you actually start like getting interested in music? When did you know that this is something that you were just going to focus hugely on making? How social media played a part in that, and obviously, like, where did this sort of irreverence of come and see for yourself come from?
Mhm. No, definitely. I'd say music has always been a part of my life. You know, I come from a very a family full of musicians. So before I could even walk, before I could even talk, you know, I've always had music around me. So my dad is an old punk rocker as well, and my mother has always been singing, playing the piano, you know. And I think that really when you get to experience that from a very young age, it becomes part of your identity. Like it almost gets imprinted into your DNA, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and I really feel like that sort of has given me my melodic language, my songwriting abilities as well. Probably started already from there. Um, then I started playing the drums when I was 6 years old, 7 years old, and that really has pushed me more to the heavier side of music, I'd say. Um, so I found out pretty early that I should do some like within the rock, you know, rock genre really was something special and something that resonated with me very well. I also have a lot of influences from like rap music, you know, Eminem and Busta Rhymes and all those OGs within the rap and hip hop
Yeah.
scene. So yeah, I'd say that is probably where it all began. But as I got into it more, I realized that it's so much more than music. This
Hmm.
thing, it's just straight up business, really. And the way you have to think about it is that you have to run it like it's like you run it the same way as you run a clothing company. It's
Hmm.
just the only difference is that it's music and it's art. And I feel like when I really figured that out, then it really made a difference in my career and the way I was able to reach more people. Uh,
Hmm.
and I think if you realize that, the earlier you realize that, the better your music journey will probably pan itself out.
Hmm.
So that's pretty much where I'm at right now, just trying to reach a broader audience, reach more people, and to really just push my music out there.
Yeah, it's quite interesting the way you described it, that it's better to run it as a business because a lot of people just go into a general field and down into making music the
Yeah.
same way that you described. They have very early musical influences. They begin expressing themselves that way. They get
Mm.
into a specific instrument. They begin making their own songs. And over time, obviously, as you see, the relevance of a lot of artists and in musical genres, particularly today, you see how big they are in the cultural sphere. You see how much influence that they hold. Even when they express their opinions on certain subjects, people just sort of want to listen. And there obviously is that urge to take this thing that I use to sort of, live by myself and then just show other people what I'm experiencing and what I'm feeling, and then become big and famous through it. There obviously is a lot of people that seek that. And then very early on, they're disappointed because they share their music with other people, and you will get those passive nods. You will get people hearing it and say, "Oh, it's really good." Even when you're very early on in your career and you know that it's just sort of, it's a little bit better than the stuff you've been making before.
Mm.
But those passive nods very rarely translate into like inflowing cash. And when it comes to a lot of artists that want to get signed or they want to like become big and famous, that often doesn't pan out because they don't acknowledge that they have to have sort of a personality that people can relate to. They don't acknowledge that they have to themselves just sort of like speak as themselves rather than as the musical artist. They don't acknowledge that there's a huge component of connection, and that is what sells
Yeah.
albums. That is what sells solos. So there's definitely like a huge tone of that in what you were saying. I want to touch down upon the previous part where we were talking about like the changing musical styles that you've had in the past.
Yeah.
There is a very interesting part in both of the songs, somewhere in the end, and Why Don't You Want Me, where it's just sort of like slow and melodic, sort of like Alex G type in the very beginning, and
Mhm.
then it just goes on, and you feel the general vibe of the music, and then about halfway through comes in like the grunge, like alternative influence, where the drums start banging and like you start like singing an entirely different tone, and it
Yeah.
feels like it's two songs combined into one.
Mhm.
So with stuff like that, did you have like an initial inspiration for why you wanted to make songs that just sort of combine more than like one theme? Why when they express some heavy feelings? Because I also found that on your YouTube channel, there's a little thing and it said something like managing my life through songs, managing my life through music.
Yeah.
And there's like obviously a huge sentiment of that in those like more autobiographical tracks that you've had on. So
Yeah.
where did those come from?
I'd say there are a couple of reasons. Um, I'll start with the where I found my influence from, like music wise,
Hmm.
from other artists, and this might come sound pretty surprising, but
Hmm.
Sicko Mode by Travis Scott.
Yeah.
Um, like the first time I heard it, uh, I hadn't really heard a song where there's such a distinct beat flip, right? Like everything
Yes.
changes, and it's such an it has such an effect on people and on an audience. And
Absolutely. Yes.
I've had the a privilege to see him live once,
Hmm.
and when he performed that song, like the way people's mind just went ballistic, went crazy from out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That really had a mark, left a mark on me. And
Yes.
I was like, when I'm getting home to the studio again, that's something I'm gonna start experimenting with as well. Um, because music it sounds cheesy, but it's true. It's a roller coaster, straight up. So when you make music, you want people to feel all kinds of emotions. In just 3 minutes, you can make a human experience sadness and happiness at the same time. And I think when you manage to create something that does that, then you have really pinpointed something very special. That's very hard to do. So maybe since you've been listening to some of the songs, like
Hmm.
you said, I oftentimes start them off pretty chill
Hmm.
sometimes, and then there's a build up where all the drums and everything comes pretty much from out of nowhere. And
You
I
flipped
want
that on its head for your most recent release, Miss Bonita, where it's all like the
Yeah.
drums are and everything just comes at you from the very beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I like to play around with it, but I really feel like when you manage to bring different dynamics into your songs and into your music, it becomes it gives that euphoric feel for the
Hmm.
listener, and I think that's really what sparks an emotion, and that makes it into something special. Like combining different sounds, different genres as well. Everything is welcome as long as you're trying to make something different and something that resonates with you, and later on with the listener, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely saw a bit of that, but I never would have connected it back to Sycamore by Travis Scott. But I think I get very well where you're coming from because in
Yeah.
that song, those unacquainted may not like literally have any idea what we're talking about, but
Mm.
it's like the little dun, 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 dun. Like it goes down at the very beginning. You feel sort of like a clock beat. You feel like
Yeah.
that. It's like that queasy psychedelic energy.
Yeah.
And there's some like soft vocals where it's just talking about, sun is down, whatever.
Hmm.
He's just like almost talking to himself, and you feel
Yeah.
those big like whoop 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 whoop, and then for the rest of the song, it's just very high energy,
Yeah.
very very like potent. And
Yeah.
especially seeing that in like concert, because I've never seen Travis Scott myself in live.
Mm.
But I can only imagine with how I've seen like stadiums go wild whenever the beat drops or something of that sort. It's
Yeah.
that sort of build up that comes eventually because everyone knows that it's coming. Once the first like little non-suggestive part of the song starts playing, where it's just a little like tink 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 starts going,
Yeah.
people sort of know what's coming
Yeah.
primarily because they've heard the song before. Otherwise, it would be like nothing. If that was like a new song that the artist was performing, it would be nothing. But
Yeah.
because these tracks get so much hype, because people are so well acquainted with them, like
Yeah.
very dumb comparison, but there's also like that one key in Runaway by Kanye West,
Mm-hmm.
where he plays a single like key somewhere on the keyboard. And the
Yeah.
second that that key plays, when there's recordings of it like playing live, people instantly know what song it is because it's so
Yeah.
widely recognizable. And it's the same thing with a lot of music by Travis Scott. So I do tend to think like the music that you were sort of influenced by, it does better because people instantly recognize it. People see it in the paradigm that it is, where it's a little bit, slow at the beginning, but then it picks up towards the end, and people
Mm.
sort of associate with songs that are similar that they've heard before.
Yeah.
So I'm curious on your thoughts on that.
I mean, for sure. Yeah. I mean, creating songs that has brings forward feelings from that people have experienced before.
Hmm.
Let's say if it's just has a similar sound to another song or something they've heard before. That's always something I'd say you look for when creating music.
Hmm.
Um, Not that you're trying to create something that's the exact same of
Hmm.
some old stuff. You also you have to create something new, of course.
Hmm.
But I think when people are reminded of a song, then they have this feeling inside of them like, oh, this hits home in a way, and they
Hmm.
can't really explain it. But
Yeah.
from like if, a creator's perspective, a musician's perspective, if you manage to do that, but still making it into your own music, then you're on a good path, I'd say. Um,
Yeah, I would definitely double down on that
yeah.
because when you see into the paths of like major artists that sort of made their entire living in their career and their life music,
Mm.
the sort of stuff that they produce very early on, they're very resonant and inspired by stuff that came before them. There's
Yeah.
a concept that we often talk about on the show where it's just like nothing is truly original. And that is
Yeah.
very much true because whereas this every single time that someone makes something, even if they're playing somebody else's song, the way that they do it, the timing, the sort of tone of their voice, that can change a lot about that song. And that's why, cover artists actually do make their own stuff and why in copyright law that's still considered somewhat unique.
Mm.
Because there's always something that new that can be brought to the table. But even very early on, it seems that a lot of musical influences play a very big role in how an artist defines themselves because you very much learn by doing. There's no
Mm.
such thing as oh, I'm gonna learn German and I'm gonna go to Germany. The two are very often intertwined. Oh, I'm gonna learn, let's say, Chinese. I'm gonna watch movies in Chinese.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like the actual end result in the process. You don't start, learning how to write books and then you write a book. You learn very much by doing, and the more that someone releases their music and sees how people respond to it and sees what kind of stuff that people like, the more they know what kind of stuff to make. And before you
Yeah.
actually have that, you just need to think, okay, what kind of stuff do I like? And then you need to resonate based on that. But it's very nice when some artists still get to keep that like that light of inspiration going in even in their
Hmm.
newer releases because it doesn't lose its soul just as much.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about that. Your first few tracks, you released them quite a long time ago.
Hmm.
I believe like not quite sure on the timing, but probably like 2024 is when you started releasing a lot of singles, and then back in 2023, I'm not sure what time.
Yeah. In the
2023,
end,
that was the time where you actually began
yeah.
publishing your music under that
Yeah.
name.
So in the end of 2023, I started releasing music under Hugo Daniel.
Hmm.
Um, and if you listen to those songs compared to the songs that I released today,
Hmm.
I guess you can find some similarities, but I wouldn't say it's the same. within the
No.
same niche. It's
Yeah.
pretty different.
It's very grunge.
Yeah, it's very grunge. So I guess that's good because I still have that sort of
Yeah.
going for me, but it's still like there's a lot of just I just mix and play around with a lot of different types and genres, you know. And I really feel like that was it was a good time for me because I
Hmm.
really got the opportunity to make something, uh, you know, just playing around, like you said, and releasing different stuff because you never know really what you're gonna like and what the audience will like as well.
Hmm.
Um, I think to begin with, you should always make music that you like yourself, and I've
Hmm.
always tried to follow that, and will always try to follow that. But I also think like the audience has an effect on you as well. So
For sure.
I've been realizing lately that the music I'm making right now it's resonating with me a lot better than the things I released in 2023, as well as it seems like more people like it as well and are able to resonate with me as an artist and with the
Hmm.
music. So what I want to say with that is that you have to, if you play around, you will find a way sooner or later, um, and it's definitely worth it. I think a lot of artists get stuck on their like first releases because they're like sometimes I mean it's not easy to release music. It's pretty scary. You really
Yeah.
put yourself out there, um, and I think a lot of artists sometimes you know they get stuck there just because they're afraid of what people are gonna think, and there's such an you expose yourself in a way where people uh, can really harm you if they like if you let them harm you.
Hmm.
I'd say which is really sad. I think artists should keep playing around with different sounds and just try uh, to just look at themselves as the artist and try to just tune out all the opinions. And when you
Hmm.
do that, you'll find what really resonates with you better in the end. Um, so yeah, I'd say that's really important. But if you look at my journey from started releasing music under Hugo Daniel 2023. I've
Hmm.
been releasing music way earlier than that
Yeah. I assume
as
so.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I started actually like releasing my own songs when I was like 16, and
Yeah.
that was you know it was terrible. Like it was really bad. I'll send you a song if I'll see if I can find one.
Yeah.
So
For
I'll give
sure.
you a listen. You wouldn't even imagine. Like it doesn't sound as me at all. But you know, still that's the music I kind of value the most because it really uh, like made me sharpen myself up and really like try to make stuff different.
Yeah.
Um, and if I had gotten stuck there, you know, I wouldn't be here today. So I really think that you have to have some whack releases in the beginning. Maybe drop like 50 whack songs, maybe 100 whack songs until
Yeah.
you finally get that good song going, and then you're like, oh, okay, so this is where it's going. This is what I want to do.
Yeah, man. Like you described a phenomenon that's common among people like that of all kinds of art, whether they're doing the traditional type of art, whether they're drawing paintings and landscapes, or whether they're releasing music, whether they're
Mm,
writing books, where it's just sort of like random stuff that you think of
yeah.
until you make something that you're really proud of, and then you put that up there, and then it takes off. That's
Mm,
like the thing that mirrors itself in the very little facets of life, or even with social media posts. People post on social media, they try to make content.
yeah.
They post the most random shit ever for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then finally they make one video. It gathers a lot
Mm,
of traction because there's a gap in the market for that, and then people keep coming back and back to it. I would assume that if we're parroting the music industry and you know business, and if
yeah.
music industry and business is so tied, then it will be the same thing with any other kind of thing that's in demand for people, and that demand is really a big thing. And earlier we were just talking about how. That there's this thing where a lot of artists tend to be influenced by their audiences, and
Hmm.
you spoke a little bit on that, and that's definitely like not a bad thing because even though the music that you make should primarily be for yourself, as you said, there is a very big, you know, untouched whole category of stuff that every
Yeah.
single person hasn't made yet, that every single person hadn't thought about yet. There will be a time later down the road when you'll be making music and then you'll think of an idea and then I'll expose you to a whole bunch of new ideas. And we never know
Yeah.
when that time really comes because in the process of actually making art, it's just inspiration from inspiration from inspiration. It tracks all down to back to one source. And then when you have like a decently sized audience, that audience can then expose you to different ideas and concepts and themes. They can show you the music that they like, the artists that they sort of associate with you, and then you go and give that a listen, and you're just like, hey, I can do something like this. And you skip a
Yeah.
few steps forward because it will take you like years to reach that line. You would never think to put the chords in a certain direction, to have something another set of instruments playing in the background. You would never think to have that many how do you call them, these little transitions between different parts of the song, the way that we were talking about in that little piece by in Sicko Mode by Travis Scott. You would never think of all of these different components, and yet having an audience can actually quite expose you to it, so it's actually quite beneficial, and that's
Mhm.
quite cool. But I noticed with your like musical trajectory, you did a little thing that maybe in my own mind I associate with like Tyler the Creator and his like eras every 2 years, where he just sort of
Yeah.
switches up the aesthetic of his music, and it not only comes across in the actual songs, it comes across in like the covers and whatnot. So
Yeah.
very early on, when I go down like the list of your tracks, or when I was doing it earlier on, whether it is on like Apple Music or on Spotify, which I do prefer Spotify, but you tend to see how you could have gone down all of these different trajectories if only you had experimented with different stuff. Because your
Mm.
very first releases, the ones that you published under Hugo Daniel in 2023, where you were just sort of more being yourself and you were actually checking that music to make sure it's not what you were producing early on, you see like you could have gone very well gone down the path to become like the next like Little Peep. You could have very well gone down a path to become one of those guys that make like very like experimental rap. You could have gone
Yeah.
down the path of someone like being a huge like grunge musician. You could have dyed your hair. You could have gotten like a golden tooth. You could have went for like the more like rich boy or like the emo look. You could have experimented so much with like your own identity and personality, and then the music that you sort of make, because it really goes down this direction for a good while. And then in around mid 2024, you released not an album, but like a single. I believe it was
Mhm.
called something like School for Fools, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And then
correct.
from that era on, I noticed that a lot of your music, while you still retain some singles that had that very much like grunge alternative style, a
Mm.
lot of your music was more just sort of experimental. You had a whole like singles that were just named like these whole ass like random names. Then you had ones that were just sort of going down that more the root of the songs that we previously spoke about, where it's like Hate Me, where
Yeah.
it's a little bit for some odd reason it reminded me of that like acoustic sort of style. It was never really acoustic, but that like slow sort of crescendo of songs by like Alex G, where it's just a little bit of like instrumentals in the background and you're just sort of talking and humming over it, and then at some point it flips. You did that with several releases midway through 2024. There was one called Sweet Talk, right?
Yeah. That's correct.
You experimented with that as well. So it's just sort of going back and forth, back and forth. But so the way that I see it, was very grunge at the beginning. Then it was a
Mhm.
little bit more like sad, but not really. Then sort of back to grunge, and eventually, as that back to grunge whole arc completed, then you switch back completely into something that you've never really done before. Something that is nevertheless a result of the releases that you had beforehand, which was the Miss Bonita, which was the
Yeah.
song that you so famously advertised on a lot of this stuff, and seemed to do quite well. So. I noticed that a lot of your stuff, you categorized it into like single releases. You have it sort of like thematically around the place. What has been the influence, the thing that led you to create all of these different songs of different cadavers, and that's not the proper word, of all these different themes, um, rather than organizing them into like a extended play or like an album or like something where they're just all sort of coalesced together. I imagine that that's what you have in your plans in the near future.
Yeah.
But a lot of this stuff is sort of independent. It speaks for itself.
Yeah. Like I'd say right now in my career, I'm still I'm still developing as an artist. I'm still trying to really have my first breakthrough.
Hmm.
I haven't really had it yet. But I can really, my audience is steadily growing. And if I compare how my audience was growing like 6 months ago to how it's growing now, it's such a huge difference. So
Yeah.
I think just in a matter of time, I'm gonna start getting more listeners and more fans, more people that resonate with the music. And that's always the goal in the end. Like you shouldn't really chase numbers.
Hmm.
You should chase a fan base and people that die for your music.
Hmm.
Um, when it comes to releasing singles, I believe that's the best way to do it as an upcoming artist.
Yeah.
Um, because, you know, in the old school days, they would, bands and artists would release albums because the music market was completely different back then. You sold
Hmm.
an album for like, I don't know, $10, maybe,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then that was it, and then that was the only music you could listen to on that album. Now with Spotify and streaming services, you know, the competition is so, it's so big, so you have,
Cutthroat. Yeah.
yeah, so you have to really, um I try to market each song like in the old school days they would market albums, but I put all that into just one single with the capabilities and the um, marketing strategies that I'm able to attain.
Hmm.
Um, and I'd say with social media as well, you know, you can't really market a whole album in just one post.
Very
Uh,
difficult. Yeah.
it's very super difficult. So um, I think that focusing on one single at a time, that
Hmm.
will really like give you the um, info and the strategic data
Hmm.
for that release and also for future releases. Like
Yeah.
what is working, what is not working, which songs should I keep pushing, and which songs should I just like maybe leave for now and maybe get back to a year later.
Yeah.
Um, I think one of my one of my best abilities is my uh, ability to create a lot of songs.
Hmm.
So when it comes to making music, for some people it might take a couple of months to make just one song.
Yeah.
While me and my team, we can probably make a song in a day.
Yeah.
So I think since we have that going for us, that's something we should use to really uh, just get the music out there and see what's working and what's not.
Yeah, I found that there's like that sort of like still looming difference between singles and sort of albums and extended play records, where it's
Yeah,
just a lot of people tend to focus on releasing a lot of stuff at once, even though they don't even have like the physical capacity to sell their music in stores.
that's
They
right.
tend to think that, you know, they're going to do it the old-fashioned way because a lot of the famous artists that they listen to and take inspiration from do it exactly that way. They release an album and people get hyped over it. But it's
Yeah,
very difficult to get someone to listen to an entire album even when you're listening to like a single song, it's just like the transference between that and then listening to another song. You know, there's kind of a lot of friction between those two. And you kind of still see that influence popping into the modern day, though, where a lot of the big artists that still exist now, they got really famous during the 2000s or the 2010s or even earlier than that. And
yeah,
they still release all of their music and albums because they have that sort of leverage to back them up. But I definitely
that's right.
think, you know, based on what you're saying, we're going to see a trend of a lot of people starting to release their music as singles, become more like indie artists that then explode all of a sudden. And
Yeah.
then we see that the vast majority of music that's going to be released in like 20 to 30 years will probably all just be from artists that started out playing like individual songs that people then liked and they got famous over social
Yeah.
media because utilizing social media is truly like where this is at. When you begin thinking of it like
It's
running like a
super
business,
it's super
I'm
important.
sure it's a completely different game.
Yeah, and just like you said, like releasing albums is easier for the big artists, but you have to look at it different as an independent artist.
Yep.
Like so, we talked a little bit about, or you mentioned Rage Inc. before.
Yeah.
So that's basically like my own record label that I'm running together with my producer.
Hmm.
So everything is essentially
You can
independent.
control it.
Yeah. So yeah, I can control it, and if something takes off, I'm the one earning all the money because, like we said, it is a business.
Yeah,
That's just something that you have to realize. Um, so when you market each song, I'd say you get the most value out of the songs that you can get. If I were to release an album right now with 10 different songs, maybe the
yeah,
first song in that album would do really good, and the rest of the songs wouldn't really get the attention that they'd probably deserve.
yeah,
Um, and that's like it's like basically trying to build a house with a hammer and just one nail. You know, you
yeah,
get one shot, but and is that supposed to be a house then? I don't think so. So you know, you really have to be strategic with it and use the tools that you have available at the time.
yeah.
And that's just looking really realistic on it, I'd say. Um,
Yeah, and as far as marketing goes and actually pushing it out to people, when you try to build like an entire house, when you try to make something big and grand, as you were saying in your analogy, and then
yeah,
you come out with something that looks subpar, it's gonna look a lot stupider, relatively speaking, than if you release just a single and then people
yeah,
don't like that single. Then you can move on, you can release another one and just chalk that one in the bin. When you have an
yeah,
album,
right.
it's something that's very permanent. It's something that a lot of people are gonna, judge your music by for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, and that's all. Like I said, you know, uh, once you become a bigger artist and you have the fan base that really uh, enjoy the music, but also uh, the artist as a person, you know,
Yeah.
there's a community around the music. Then it's probably possible to drop an album
Yes.
because there's more people that really just it is into the music and is into the artist and that will take their time to listen to a whole album.
Yes.
Um, but I'd say for up and coming artists, the main priority should be singles because that gives the most value for the music at the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No, you see that thing that you were talking about with record labels a lot too, where because it is something that you founded by yourself with another group of people, you yourself have a lot of control over how your own music is displayed. But a lot of beginning artists, they tend to get shoved into that very badly. And the best comparison that I have from both myself and a lot of people that we've interviewed is people that release books and then
yeah,
they try for years and years and years to get a publishing company to publish it. And then a publishing company comes in and they claim, oh, we're going to do all these things for you. The or writer signs the first deal that they have because wow, I'm going to be a published author now,
yeah,
and they take like a cut of 80% of the book's profits. Then they take like a 10% cut on
yeah,
taxes. They take like a 5% cut on every single delivery. You get 5% of the book's profits. You're told that it's a good deal, and then they sell it to like some foreign country where nobody's like gonna read it, so that people who are practicing English can
yeah.
like, study based off of it. And
That's
that's
a
the
fraud.
same pattern that rips a lot of musical artists off, probably.
Yeah, yeah,
Because a lot of people do get signed to these labels, and then the labels do jack shit for them, and they just put their musical career all the way down.
dude, I've been there. Like
Yeah,
like I said, when I was 17 years old, I signed my first record deal, and I
yeah,
was so hyped about it. I was like, damn, I'm gonna blow up tomorrow. And they
yeah,
received the music. They was like, "Oh, this is super good. We're gonna release this." And I was like, "Okay, let's go." Release date comes up. What happens? Nothing. So they
yeah.
basically just they take the songs, they throw it at the wall, hope it's gonna stick. If it doesn't stick, you know, then that's it. And you
Yeah, at least
receive
they take the profits and at least one more talking head to get them, money by promoting the song.
yeah, and correct. And they take 80%, and you're basically left with nothing, as well as not having really the. You know when you sit there and you're like, damn, you realize that I'm the one who's gonna have to do all the work, and I'm
Yeah,
getting not even 20% of this. It
yeah,
doesn't
man.
make any sense. So it's basically a fraud. I really think artists should you to be honest, you probably shouldn't sign with a label that
Yeah,
early on. You have to have some leverage. Otherwise, you're gonna get a shitty deal and you're gonna just throw your music career into the dumpster for at least a while.
yeah,
And it's not worth it. I know it's tempting. Like I said, I have gone down that path before. Luckily, my deal wasn't that for that long. It was just for like a couple of maybe I think it was 4 releases. So
yeah,
I got out of it pretty quickly. but if there would have been a bad, really bad deal, then that could have really had a very negative effect on my career as a whole.
For
Uh,
sure. With a lot of these things, you do sort of need to do it and sign later on if you're going to sign at all, because then you can actually get a better deal, as you said. But
yeah.
I very much resonate with the story that you gave with the music publishing, with the sort of record label that you signed with. Because I myself, I'm not a musician. I do play guitar,
Mm.
but I did publish a debut novel several years ago. So I was just sort of in the whole like writing sphere. And I'm very much still am into that, much less now because I got my profits and I got out.
Mm.
But that wasn't always the case that was forecasted for me because in the very beginning I did initially try to write to all these major publishing firms in order to get published. And then one wrote back to me and they said, "Oh, we're very interested in your book. We'll be very interested in getting it out." It was just as I was about to, do the same thing that you did, create my own publishing company and just put it under there because you can very much do that now with all the technology that's available to you. It takes a
Yeah,
lot of work, but it's better than being ripped off.
definitely.
And I was very excited at that. So I took them up on their proposition. I, signed something. I sent it back to them, and they're just like, "Okay, so in order to print your book, you're gonna need to pay us $2,500." And I'm
Yeah,
like, "Wait a second. Like, wait a moment.
yeah,
I'm paying you for
yeah,
you to print my book so that you can then sell it and take a vast majority of the profits?
yeah. I
Like,
mean, it's a
you
fraud. It's a
want to
straight up
cut
fraud.
and for me to pay?"
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. Just hearing about it, I'm fuming. But
Yeah.
it's I mean, I think what's really good with you having this podcast now, it seems like you have a lot of experience within this as well.
Hmm.
I think it's really good that this kind of information has to go out to artists and artists of all kinds. Artists
Sure.
within music, within if it's writing a book, if it's being like paintings, whatever. Like there's always a catch to it, pretty much when you're on the up and coming. It's just that sometimes you realize it too late. Uh, but you said you had already signed then when you told me
I
to.
managed to get out of that. Thankfully,
Okay, good.
my mother happens to be like an attorney.
Oh, that's what's
So,
up.
so you can read in between like the little print, you can get legal advice, and you're just like, yeah, it was something like I signed that I would be signing a deal with them, but I didn't say what deal or something like that.
Yeah, cool. That's great.
If they had been clear in their legal paperwork, I would have gotten ripped off, and I would have never published that book.
Yeah, damn. And that's, it's a scammy business. Like you really have to be on your toes within this
Yeah,
this kind of
they
stuff.
had this woman from Vermont with like an Indian accent, and she kept calling me for the next like 2 years. The book was
Yeah.
already published. I had already done interviews about it. It had already been on the news, and she's still calling me like, "Hey, when are we getting your book?" And the
Yeah,
numbers just kept
damn.
going to my spam inbox every so often. It was horrendous.
Yeah,
Uh,
she wanted her percentage on that,
she
those
definitely
2000.
wanted
Yeah.
her percentage. It was just
Yeah.
like, oh, I couldn't feed somebody's family, unfortunately.
Yeah, damn. Well, tough for
But
them.
no, no, it's very much like the case that you described that a lot of people do tend to get signed and swept up by these labels, but they don't really know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
I was just going to talk a little bit more about like the initial exposure that you get through social media and how that actually does help. So when it comes to actually publishing your own stuff for like the record label, you do obviously have a lot of control over it, but over the individual songs and how they do, there's a lot of artists now that as we talked about, publish their stuff as like singles and EPs.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to coalesce these songs together. They tend to make like little like two free versions. Then they put it out, or they just release a single and then they get it out, and they can then use it on TikTok, which is a wonderful algorithm that you can directly put it on there. But there's a lot of artists that way who got pretty well known by being like more of like a one hit wonder, where they
Yeah.
did like really, really, really good on a song, and then the rest of their music kind of is it goes down to the pipe. Some people are going to listen to it, but the vast majority are not going to. Are you a
Mm.
little bit terrified of like becoming a one hit wonder in the future, or do you think that will be good?
I'd say, most artists probably never get the opportunity to have a hit ever.
Hmm.
So I'd take a one hit wonder, uh, like before not having a hit at all. So
Yeah.
having a one hit wonder still would be a blessing. I know it's kind of like there's a lot of trash talks regarding artists that have a one hit wonder. But still, in the end, if you look at it, who's the winner? Like they still had a one hit, that most people don't get to experience that at all. So
Yeah,
that's not something that really terrifies me. Still, of course, I would like to have a couple of hits, and I would like my music career to become the whole discography to be something different, with a
hmm
lot of big songs, big hit songs, and to reach out to like a lot of people over the years, of course. But I wouldn't say a one hit wonder is something that terrifies me. I think if that's something that terrifies you and you would rather not blow up than have a one hit wonder, I can't really make sense of that.
for sure.
If that makes sense. You might
No,
have gotten different answers on that specific question, but I would say that, it's still a hit. A hit is a
yeah.
hit. Yeah.
It does make sense. You can definitely capitalize off of that. But
Yeah.
a lot of people nowadays, you see them like verging on this path towards like integrity. Like, oh, I want to be someone that's like known for all of your stuff. I want my message to come across. And I suppose that you're thinking a lot more about it from
Of
like the
course,
business
yes, but of course,
perspective.
of course, you want to, but that
Yeah.
you're not the one deciding that. It's the
Yeah,
audience in the end that really
absolutely. It's the
decides.
audience and the algorithms and everything in it. It's a very
Yeah, there's
big
a lot
thing.
of different components in play. So you really just have to, if you give it all the efforts, and you do as much as you can yourself, then
Hmm.
that's you somewhere have to be satisfied with that.
Yeah.
And if the probability of you getting a hit if you work really hard
Hmm.
is gets way higher, I'd say.
Yeah.
And if you just keep that momentum going and you keep working hard, and you'll probably get a hit further down the road anyways. But
Hmm.
you just gotta keep the momentum, and keep that work ethic going, and not focus too much on, oh, what if this is gonna happen? What if this doesn't happen? I mean, it's irrelevant. Like, it's just unnecessary energy being spent on jack shit. So
Yeah, you're and wasting your energy on things that you cannot control directly.
yeah, and it's yeah, correct.
And if you do that, then you have no way of actually, short circumventing bad situations when they do come to you. If you're
Yeah,
focusing on stuff that you can control, you can then get mastery of that, and you have total problems out of the way in your life and your
yeah,
career, whatever the hell you're even targeting. When you're thinking about like future problems and future like releases, stuff that you'll post in the future, stuff that you'll make in the future, how that will come across to people, especially the how will that come across to people part, because you can never decide how someone's going to look at your stuff. Someone
hmm,
can always like hear the same thing and say, oh, this is literally the worst song that I've ever heard in my life. I hate everything. I'll rather much listen to like a cat scratching a chalkboard. And another person will listen to it and it'll be just like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. And then almost everyone will be somewhere in between, and you never really know when
yeah,
that person's going to fall. There's so many different influences and factors. So that definitely is a good theory to go by. I just want to refer to something that we talked about previously, which was that it's way better, in your opinion, and also coincidentally in mine, to have a small audience or a community of people that appreciate your stuff and that listen to it frequently, because that also provides better foundations for if you release an album in the future, that a lot of people are, going to quite want to listen to it because those people already invest in your music and your personality and your style, which is
yeah,
pretty much more important and foremost of all. And then we think of situations like that, and then we analyze it. And there's a lot of people that they have a good amount of people listening to their music, but they don't really have a community. And I
yeah,
see that you made a lot of your community pretty much through social media. You pretty much like mastered that game, so to say. I know there's a lot of the stuff to learn, but just by looking through all like the different links from Ray Jink and whatnot, just by researching information on the different projects that you worked on in the past, there's a lot of like different connections where you post a lot of stuff on YouTube. You post like little teasers on all over on social media. You do on TikTok. That's initially how we connected because it tends to do quite well on there. You do like different audio only parts of it, along with your like Apple Music and then Spotify releases. You can pretty much freely access your music anywhere.
Mm.
Obviously, every single time we have a musical artist on, we link their stuff in the description. But anybody that would want to find your music could very easily find it because it has that like search optimization, so to say, in a very nerd techy way. But it just comes down to my question: what kind of advice would you give to people who are starting artists that want to promote themselves using social media? What have you learned in so far of doing this, and how has your audience been growing exponentially over the past 6 months when earlier
Yeah.
it failed to attract a lot of traction?
Yeah. I'd say in my case, like really realizing how valuable social media is,
Mm-hmm.
especially TikTok, like the way the algorithm is formed and how it pushes your music and your creations to people is
Mm-hmm.
it's really a remarkable, platform in that sense. Uh, I started off like pretty narrowly. Like I just had one account where I really experimented. I started doing my own stuff pretty much. I didn't really look that much at other creators, which I'd say was probably uh, a waste of time. I think
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to making social media, there's so much to learn from other creators. And I think it's when it comes to creating content, being able to look at other creators, see what's working for them,
Mm-hmm.
steal that idea,
Yeah.
then try to apply it on your own music and on your own just artistic expression.
Mm-hmm.
If you manage to do that really well, then
Mm-hmm.
you'll sooner or later have a video blowing up with your music, and you're just like that. You're gonna see traction. Like it's
Yeah.
very interesting looking at my Spotify algorithm. Like
Mm-hmm.
just from one day, I can have a couple of listeners, and then I have one video taken off, getting like thousands of likes, and
Yes.
just from one day to another, like everything spikes. So it really
Yeah.
has that momentum. And then a lot of those people that comes to my music from that video, they will stay there and
Yeah.
keep listening to my music
Yeah,
and to
because
my
they'll put
releases.
it in their light song section or something, and then every single time they're in the car, there's a small chance that
Yeah,
it plays. They get reminded of it, they want to listen to more of it. So it
right.
accelerates over time. It's like a sort of exponential growth.
Yeah, so it's like a spike, then it
Hmm.
goes down a little, but it
Yeah.
doesn't. Maybe it started here, it
Yeah.
spikes, then it goes back, and maybe this is the new starting
But
point.
the baseline is now
The
slightly
baseline is
higher.
always, yeah, it's slightly higher. So when you do that continuously, then you're really gonna see some like exponential growth. You're gonna
Yeah.
see a difference, and you're gonna have people reaching out to you, wanting to buy merch. It's crazy. Like just in these last couple of months, the audience and the real fans that I've been gaining, and I'm so thankful for that. That wants
Hmm.
to really not just engage with my music, they want to engage with me in my life as a whole. They want to go to shows, they want to buy merch, and they want
Hmm.
to really just talk. It's
Hmm.
it's uh, it's a crazy thing, having listeners all over the world, and that really TikTok and social media can do that for you for free. It's like it's a complete game changer for independent artists like myself. So yeah, it,
Yeah, I
it's it,
suppose there's a lot of like localization in it as well because this is just what I know from like traveling all over, and I've been a nomad for the past 2 years. I'm ending my nomad streak,
sick,
but I've been living everywhere.
sick. Yeah,
And every single time that you enter a new country, the social media tends to be geared towards that country. There tend to be some localization settings that you can implement, particularly on my TikTok account. Like the only reason I was able to get several, 10, a dozen thousand followers is
mm,
because every single time that I went somewhere, that content was then exposed to a new audience. Every single time that I posted something about some place, then there would be a lot of people from that place that would be viewing it. And I
mm,
guess it's very nice for you where a lot of people are asking, for merch and for events and stuff like that, stuff that you've already kind of like sort of planned out in your head for the future. Because then you can get a general idea of where these people are from. Then you can get a
yeah,
general idea of what kind of area of the world you want to distribute your stuff in. And now with social media, it's easier than ever to actually get that in that place. Because when you think about it like 30 or 40 years ago, how the hell would you get like followers from Germany? There will be no
Yeah.
way for you to specifically get people from Germany to listen to your music. Whereas nowadays, there's so many different functions and tools that you could utilize to specifically get people from that country to like your stuff so that you're gonna do an event there one day. You can use your connections based off of like existing people that already listen to your music. You can tell them to share their music with their friends. That like pops it off a lot more. And
Yeah.
talking about the Spotify statistics, I'm pretty sure we have access to the same exact ones because our podcast was pretty much just like YouTube and then MP3s and on our previous website and then like audio episodes only. We had a little bit of Apple Music,
Yeah.
but we were just sort of just uploading the video to YouTube, putting the MP3s and the sound files wherever and hoping that people would find it. And it did work quite well for a while. But the moment that we uploaded it on Spotify, I noticed the same trend that you were just describing just now, where, we don't release an episode in a while. It's just like one daily listener, two daily listeners, because someone opens it up. And then we release an episode, and that number goes up sometimes to like 40, 60,
Mm,
115. People are listening
mm,
to that episode because it pops up on their front page. People get recommended it. They find it in their search results. Then it stays like that for like a day or two. It shortly falls off. And now where the baseline was previously like 0 or 1 or 2, the baseline is like 4 or 5 because people
yeah.
have the episode saved. It's less frequent than it would probably be with music because I tend to play more music in my car than I do play podcasts. But it is an interesting trend where every single time that you have something that blows up, the rest of your stuff also seems to like quite blow up a little bit as a result. And I
Mm,
guess that would put a little bit of doubt into like the one hit wonder myth. Because if you listen to like a song that you really, really like and everybody that you know really, really likes from this one artist,
yeah.
eventually somebody's going to get curious and be like, what other stuff have they made?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like
Definitely.
a big trend that I saw also with the whole like Spotify spiking thing.
Yeah. And
Uh,
I also think like regarding social media, if you're
mhm.
really able to build an audience on social media,
Yeah.
like if as a creator, you're the one in the driver's seat. Like you're the one making the moves on your social media page.
Yeah, man.
So when you have a song that you really like, and now you also have people that really like the music and like you as an artist,
Hmm.
and you start promoting, let's say you start promote a song that you dropped 3 years ago because you're
Hmm.
like, this is sick, but people just haven't heard about it.
Hmm.
You can make a song trend that's even like 50 years old. You can make
Yeah.
it trend in this day and age, like with the social media, you can make it trend. And I
It's
think,
awesome. It's
yeah,
awesome. That has happened to people in the past.
yeah. So when you have a dedicated audience that really is passionate about your music and about your art, then you can really, like, in a way, decide what songs you really want to push and what songs you want to blow up.
Yeah.
Now, some songs are naturally gonna do better because some songs are just gonna resonate with more people. But I
Hmm.
think you have, with a bigger audience, you get leverage and you have some more leverage to really choose which songs you want to blow up and to become bigger just by utilizing social media.
Yeah, man. There was like this case even on TikTok with this like 50 or 60 or something year old woman, 70-something-year-old woman, and she had like a song that she debuted when she was very young, and that song was then used in some sort of like film or TV show back in like 2021, 2022, and
Mm,
then someone found that song from the TV show. They used it in an edit of another show. Then people started making videos with it, and eventually that song became pretty popular and like trendy on TikTok.
yeah.
And then it reached like the 97 or 96 on the top 100 Billboard scale. And
Damn.
this woman was already in like a nursing home and her
Yeah.
music. How do you tell this woman in a nursing home that this song she recorded like 40, 50 years ago is
Yeah.
now on the Billboard 100? It's like, it's
Yeah.
about time?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
No, that's the sort of thing that social media can do, and I guess I've always been relying on that with the book as well, because with books, it's like a very rare thing where it's very rare that someone would pick up a book and try to read it. A lot of
Mm,
these days, you only see it if it's from like dedicated authors that have wrote a lot of stuff.
yeah.
Even with like new publications by famous authors like Stephen King, like a small group of people are going to read it, and then they're going to be like, it's trash or it's good, and then
Mm,
it's going to get a few news articles about it, and there we go, and then rest on the shelf. But that sort of catalog of large amount of stuff resting on the shelf is actually quite good because you can then promote it later down the line. Someone can then discover it later down the line, and you never know. You may have like one of your songs get a little bit of traction in the future, but then through that song, someone looks at your older stuff, they find out one song, they really click with it, and then that song gains even more exposure than you would have hoped for your recent release. And
Yeah,
I guess that is the sort of thing that a lot of smaller authors also hope for when they're more independent, when they publish their book and it gets like a few hundred sales, like mine did, where that's now a few hundred people that have my book somewhere in the attic or somewhere in
yeah,
their house, somewhere on their bookshelf. And
yeah,
someday, like someone's just gonna come into the house.
yeah,
Maybe it's someone like that's being invited over. Maybe it's like an ex-girlfriend. Maybe it's someone breaking in, right? And they're gonna see that book. And there's a
yeah,
small chance they're gonna be like, "What is that book?" And now,
yeah,
because of technology and of social media, they can just look it up on the internet, and then they'll
mm,
find like what it is, and they can easily just find everything about it. They can find me as the author. It can be very easy to just sort of search for that information now and then track
yeah,
it back to me, which also gives me a chance to get more sales in the future. It is something that is an investment in how people are going to perceive me years and years and years from now, rather than something small that is only valid for a little while. But what you see with a lot of like starting artists, they just want to make that big impression now. And a lot of
mm,
people do tend to get overwhelmed and burnt out and bored when their
yeah.
when their stuff doesn't hit off after a small while. What do you think about that? How do you solve
I
that?
think it's like as humans, I think we want we want results directly. I think it's in our nature almost,
Yeah.
if we do something, we want results to happen right at that time.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a like it makes sense, but in a way it doesn't. Like I think a lot of just people today, they look at numbers, and
Mm-hmm.
if something like let's say something has streamed a lot,
Mm-hmm.
then it's like okay, so this has to be a good song because it has a lot of streams. And I think numbers really has a psychological effect on the listener. It does, but I
Mm-hmm.
think also in the same way it can have an effect, almost a better effect when you have a smaller listening audience.
Yeah.
Uh, so let's say you find an artist that has maybe 200 listeners on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
At least, talking from my own perspective, if I find that and I find that this artist makes really good music, that music becomes really special for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
so I'm one of the 200 people that has found this masterpiece,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the one who's gonna I'll be able to
It
listen to
puts
this
you
stuff.
in the process,
Right,
definitely.
yeah, and I'd say it's probably the same with books. If a person that finds a really good book and then realizes, oh shit, I'm one of 200 people that has this book, so
Yeah.
this must mean something. This is something special, because this is it's almost like, okay, so this is my book times 10.
Yes.
uh, and I think if you're able to not just look at the numbers and look at the art as it is,
Yes.
like those people are probably uh, the most important for your future success as well,
Yeah.
because those are the people that's gonna stick around with you for like your the rest of your career probably,
Yeah.
because they get that initial um, they recognize you from the initial starting point. Like, so I have a lot of people on my social media, they write, "Oh, I'm an OG fan. I want OG tickets because I'm here
Yeah.
at the starting point," which makes sense. It becomes special for them because they're one of the first ones. And
Yeah.
that, it's I think that if you really can just not if you don't look at the numbers, and instead you just look at the art as it is, and can find comfort and just enjoy that,
Mm-hmm.
and as an artist to be comfortable with the process. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the main goal. So if you want to reach the huge big numbers from the beginning, then you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna just disappoint yourself. You have to see it as a process and really just work listener to listener. And it's gonna start off with one listener, then two, then maybe five, then maybe 10. Then further down the line, you're gonna have 1,000 listeners and so on.
Yeah, dude, I definitely admire that theory because there's like a huge focus nowadays on results and what is this going to give me? What is
Yeah,
this going to take away from me? How is this going to make me look in front of people? That's a very like not only is it short-sighted, but in my mind, it's a sort of pathological, like narcissistic or psychopathic way to look at things. Because a
It
lot of
is.
people nowadays tend to be like, oh, I will give this birthday gift to this person, then they will like me more, then they will be more likely to introduce me to this person who I also want to get to know so I can get more money. Like
Yeah.
people make all these webs in their minds of all the different things they want to accomplish in life. And they don't
Yeah.
see how indirectly a lot of their actions are, ways to accomplish that gratification instantly.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to like growing artists, how they want exposure very early on, um, as you mentioned yourself, it is way better to focus on making the actual art good, focus on
Mm-hmm.
making your individual releases actually stick with people, and
Mm-hmm.
that way the quality will largely speak for itself because stuff can still very quickly spread for word of mouth in this new like social media age. If someone
For
thinks that
sure.
your
For
stuff is
sure.
really, really good and they speak about it loudly enough, that in itself can make you blow up, especially if that person is quite well known. And if
Yeah.
you make something that is really of like a superb quality, and in years down the line, someone that has some sort of influence sees it, that
Yeah.
superb quality will speak for itself. So it's definitely a mindset of more of not only focusing on things you can control, it's a mindset of not looking forward to like the result or expectations of something, simply
For
doing
sure.
something because it is the way that you sort of express yourself in that genre.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think, a lot of artists these days, you look at your own big influences and how much streams they have, how many fans they have, and then you put like just completely unrealistic expectations on yourself,
Hmm.
which I'd say that the biggest risk with that is that you drain yourself completely and you'll start hating creating music and you'll start hating marketing just because it almost definitely won't work out for in the beginning at least.
Yeah.
And you really have to do it step by step. And you can just look at some of the like major influences of this world, starting off. Um, who we got? The Windows guy. What's his name? Bill Gates.
Bill Gates.
Yeah, like he started off fairly small, He didn't have a lot, and he had to try different strategies, and now he has one of the biggest selling companies in the world. Look at Walt Disney as well. He went bankrupt like was it 3 times until
Yeah,
Disney
something like
really
that.
took off.
His
So
first several companies went bankrupt, in fact.
yeah, yeah, and he kept going. Probably most people would have stopped like at the first bankruptcy. But
Hmm.
if you have that really have that trust in yourself and that you can do something different and bring something more to the table, I think that, looking at it realistically and not being too hard on yourself,
Hmm.
I think that's very easy to become. Like I'm pretty hard with myself, and that's one of my major struggles.
Hmm.
To really like be being able to look at my process and just compare it. Be like, okay, so where was I one month ago, and
Hmm.
where am I now, and just
Are
to
you
see
quite
have I made a
perfectionistic in that sense?
I'd definitely say so. I definitely say I'm a perfectionist, and I think that's good, but it's also quite dangerous. Yeah,
Hmm.
quite
Yeah,
dangerous.
sure.
But it's that's also something you have to really figure out on your own. I'd say, like you'll start knowing your limits, and once you get to know your limits, you start find ways to cope with some of your struggles. Um, like being a perfectionist, I think it's is really good because you want to do
Hmm.
something that's yeah, that's perfect, but essentially it could also become a nightmare because you never really uh, get anything out in the end because being
You're a perfectionist, yeah.
nothing can become fully perfect, I'd say.
Yeah,
Like
nothing.
it's perfect once you finished it, it's perfect.
Yeah,
Just finish it, and
yeah.
it will never be completely finished until you've released the song. Then it's okay, now it's perfect. And
Yeah, no
just
one
accept
really
that.
cares that a
Yeah,
song is perfect if it's like if it stops halfway through because it's unfinished. If it doesn't
yeah,
have the instrumentals in the background because it's unfinished. If the
yeah,
vocals, sound off because it's unfinished.
yeah,
Yeah, so rather than delay that process, it's probably better to, as you said, strike that, balance in between having that large catalog of stuff that builds up, which is what we talked to a lot of our previous musician guests about,
Mm,
versus having like a product that is of good quality that you can really resonate with. Having
mm,
something in between those two, where you can both put out like a large amount of songs, as you were saying, that
mm,
you produce songs in a quite speedy way along with your team. You have the tracks, you have control over your record company. You can
yeah.
get the track out and done. You can put everything, you know, you can do it pretty much within a speedy time frame. But then
Mm,
there is also the like talk of you have to have that battle of perfectionism as well, and you have to
mm,
think of all of the little components that you have of that. So because you're already gifted with that trait of being able to produce music fast, I believe like the perfectionist traits of wanting for it to be better and better and better before and polished up before it gets out. That
yeah.
actually just counterbalances your natural impulse to go 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 go. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, you see that
Definitely.
a lot.
Definitely. So I mean, you just have to find a way to cope with it and find a strategy and be able to just become satisfied with your work and with yourself. Uh, but it's not easy. And I respect people who are perfectionists, but it can really easily destroy you as well. So it's yeah, gotta be careful.
Yeah, cool. Coming into the topic of the OGs, as you were saying, people who are exposed to your music very early on and are sort of invested in seeing you grow.
Yeah.
I did notice that there's a lot of cases like that where people are just like, oh, I actually knew them before they got famous, and
Yeah.
it's quite a well-known thing. So, what has been so far your like experience with that? The first people that were exposed to your music, I assume, were very early on, since you
Hmm.
started posting music on the internet since I assume you were 16 or 17 years old, as you were saying previously. The first
Mm.
people that were exposed to your music, how do they feel about the progress that you made now, that you still keep on going, that you still keep on making stuff in this genre?
I think they're even more like they've gotten even more into the music and to myself as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I generally say they're proud, it becomes like a relationship almost. You
Yeah.
build relationship with each fan, and especially with the OGs, because they're the ones like I even know their faces, I know their names, and
Yeah.
I know their mom's name. Like I really
Yeah.
tried to build like almost a friendship, with my first fans, because those are the ones that's really gonna make a difference, and those
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that's gonna start talking about you. And like you
They build
said,
the community because then they're like, oh, I know this guy. I'm
everything
gonna
is
listen to his
community.
music.
Everything is community. I mean, like you said it before, but that it's probably better to have a really close but smaller community than a very wide range of audience, but nobody really knows who you are.
Yeah.
Um, and I think as an artist, when you realize that that's the most important thing,
Mm-hmm.
um, to become a sustainable business, that then you'll really start, to engage with the OG fans just from the beginning, and to really engage yourself in their lives as well, uh, because the more you do that, um, the better the relationship and the better the fan base is gonna become. And I love all my OG fans and all my fans. It's really because like my music is like my baby, and when
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to share my baby with them, so it's it's yeah, it becomes a family in that sense. And I think it's really, you have to value family in all kinds of ways. um, and just looking back at it, and the people that has stayed for so long, it's just truly a blessing. I can't really wrap my head around it, that they've been listening to me since I was, you know like you said, 17. I had maybe 50 listeners at the time, and I still have some of them sticking around checking out my stuff. um,
That's a long way to go, man.
it's a long way to go, but it's definitely worth it in the end. And
Mm.
thinking today, when I have thousands of people listening to my music and reaching out, engaging with my music, imagine in 5 years' time from now, if I keep that same mentality, I think it could really make something special and unique out of this. So yeah, it's gonna be an exciting time in a couple of years.
Yeah, man. Even us getting to talk, it was definitely a shot in the dark, so to say. But with now thousands of people listening, have you gotten any of the standard classic "Come to Brazil"? When are you coming to Brazil? Messages yet? That people from certain
Definitely.
corners of the world tend to send a lot.
Definitely. I have lost count how many I've gotten from Brazil. But you know, the Brazil fan base seems to be just really awesome. And I think,
Yeah,
especially within like the music I'm doing, I think we
they
could have
like
some.
music. They love that type of shit, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I really think, imagine, having a show in Brazil, it would be awesome, and to
Yeah,
just being able to communicate and talk with these old school OG fans that
yeah.
really, resonate with the music from very early on.
Mm.
That's very exciting. But I have a lot of also people reaching out from within Europe, which I'd say, since I'm in Europe right now, I'd say my first couple of tours within Europe it would be here, But I also
Yeah, I
want
was gonna
I want to go to
say.
South America as well and do some shows.
I was gonna say because this very very quickly relates to what I was saying, where
Yeah,
I suppose that's very good that you have this whole thing with Rage Inc. where you're located, in Sweden, because
yeah.
Sweden really puts you in like the geographic position where
Hmm.
it's relatively like easy to do shows in Europe. Even like just going around Europe and visiting different countries, it's definitely been my experience that it is a very interconnected place. And with a population of like 700 million people, a lot of the people that are going to be discovering new music early on, some of them will be from these distant corners of the world, like New Zealand, Australia, Brazil, somewhere in the Caribbean. But then you will inevitably get a large audience of people in countries like France, Germany, Italy. A
Hmm.
lot of the people in these countries now tend to listen to music in English, and that's especially the case like in Sweden and Norway, I would assume. I haven't been to Sweden that much, but I visited Norway on numerous occasions, and dude,
Right, right.
everybody there just speaks English. Everybody there is just like very, very Western.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't have that feeling of being in an alien culture, and even now in countries like Germany and Poland, where I've stayed in the past, like the young people, they act very, very American, and
Mm.
the ability for those people to be on websites such as YouTube or on platforms and apps like TikTok, and to discover your music and to then be interconnected with that whole world, it provides you the availability as an artist, I suppose, to very quickly get in front of these people to very quickly pivot your career in that sense into live shows. So I
Yeah.
suppose you'd be very excited for that.
For sure, definitely. I think, especially when it comes to live shows, the way you're able to really connect with people, I think that's really where fans become the diehard, hardcore fans that will stick
Yeah.
around for the rest of your career.
Because they've
Um,
met you, like they've de facto met you. I've been to concerts
yes,
that only had like 10 or 12 people, but the band had like organized it months before. They were like on a big tour, and some of them had hundreds of listeners, some of them had only like 10 or 12 people.
yeah,
Those people really connect with the music because they specifically went out of their way to listen to that artist that they really like. And on top of that, it's like this lost cost fallacy. Like, I must really, really like this person's music and I must really promote it because I went all the way out of my way just to go see them live tonight, and it was pretty cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, definitely, definitely. And I think that's the goal really from now on. Like we talked about it a bit before. I have a band right now, and we're starting to really, really get there. So we're ready to play live now and perform these songs live. Live is gonna be an amazing feeling, and I really think that we'll be able to make an even bigger impact once the live scene has hit. And
Hmm.
when you get, like you said, when you get to talk to people, you get to communicate with people in the real world. That's when
Hmm.
you really have an impact on people as well. And yeah, really, just really looking forward to that. Um, yeah, it's gonna
You
it's
know,
it's gonna be a couple of exciting months
For
coming up.
sure, for the rest
Uh,
of 2025 and 2026
definitely,
upcoming, hopefully,
definitely.
I can expect a lot of new releases. But I just want to quickly say, like a lot of artists were definitely killed by the pandemic because they weren't allowed back in like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2019, 2020 when they were starting to like tour. They were not allowed to do live shows, and all of that stuff got canceled, and they just sort of lost motivation sitting in their room for 2 years. There are a lot of
Yeah.
people that use that opportunity to get better. and master their skill, and I assume that you were profoundly one of them,
Mhm.
because you can definitely like use that time to invest in other fields. But there are a lot of people whose like lives were ruined simply because they weren't able to perform live. When you look at the most highest selling and grossing artists of all time, they all still perform live shows. It's a very important component. It's where the entire field originates.
Yeah.
So that is definitely a succinct summary. So very quickly before we start, wrapping up here and ending the podcast episode, I want to ask you about your individual releases and the sort of themes that you find yourself dealing with and thinking about, and the creative process of doing them. So first of all, from most recent to oldest, I suppose, your latest release, Miss Bonita. Where did that come from? How did you switch into making the drums and the upbeat energy at the very beginning?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting one actually, because believe it or not, it actually started off as a pretty slow tune.
Mm-hmm.
Like the BPM was pretty, pretty mellow, and everything was pretty chill. I had a complete different vision for the song to start with, but
Yeah.
then, I went out with a couple of friends, and I had a bit too much booze, maybe.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Frequent
when I
experience. Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes when I go home, or quite oftenly, actually, I listen to some of my just voice memos. That's where I record and store most of my ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I just listened to this uh, mellow version of Miss Bonita, you might say. And I
Yeah.
was like, nah, this is too slow. There has to be something more added to this. And that's where I got the idea of really, just um, yeah, just turning the music up and really just making it into a more punchy version uh,
Yeah.
of the song. And the synth,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
it's very distinctive for that exact song. That was in the beginning supposed to be like choirs, very chill,
Really?
like, yeah, almost churchy choirs. Uh, I might actually make an acoustic song of it.
You mean like the
Somewhere.
da-da-da-da, that
Yeah,
part?
yeah.
The
There was supposed
da-da-da-da?
to be like
Really?
choirs. Yeah, which was like, but when you listen to the song now,
Da-da-da-da. That
yeah,
one?
yeah. That part was supposed to be choirs, and was supposed to go, da-na-na-na.
That's wild, man.
Yeah,
That's very
super
like
super slow.
1980s,
Yeah.
like groovy, man.
Yeah, yeah, that's right, that's right. And I think that would actually be pretty sick too. But when I had the idea, like, I really have to turn this up. This has to become a messy one.
Yeah.
That really like made this song super, like, just super different and special for me. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love that song, man. I love it. I think it's gonna go places. I continuously work with it, and like we talked about before, just because it hasn't got a million views or a million streams today, it doesn't mean anything, because the people that are listening to it are really resonating with it.
Yeah, of
But with
course.
with time, it's gonna grow even more, and that's the main goal, really, right now.
Yeah, you definitely have that alternative rock influence in that song. But it's
Yeah,
quite interesting to see that, it came from a completely different place.
yeah,
Because when we think about, like, releases and stuff like this, we often don't realize that there's like a whole artistic process behind it where you're just sort of experimenting with it. I was for one surprised that you do the same thing that I do, where you have
yeah,
an idea and then you just go to like your phone's like voice notes and then you sort of say
yeah,
it into the phone. That's something that I've been doing for like years.
yeah.
I suppose that's what the entire point of the app is for, but it must be very helpful as a music artist to get that sort of
Very much
influence
so. Very
overall.
much so.
And with how you were saying with constantly working and experimenting with the song, yeah, like something of this scale where you're deviating so much from what you did previously, but you have that like legendary synth. Like it's a really nice synth. I just want to say
Yeah.
that like a song.
Cheers.
It's very
Appreciate it.
unique that compared to not only other stuff that I see, but other stuff you made. So it's addictive in that sense, but just because it's different from the rest of your music and just because you see it getting a lot of traction, I would say definitely stick with stuff like that. Definitely
For
stick
sure.
with still promoting it. I see no harm being done here, especially since it's worked for you so well recently.
Yeah, definitely.
Jumping into your older stuff,
Mm.
this is the stuff that I really wanted to talk about because this is the stuff that I liked.
Yeah.
Four songs at once. Why Don't You Want Me? How Would I Know? Somewhere in the End and Hate Me. These songs were very similar in like their composition. They had different parts because some of these were like slow and melodic, as you were saying. They had that sort of a vibe where I think these are the songs that I think you would have put the church choirs in. You would have put like the
Mm.
you would have not done a sing. You would have done something in the background where it's just like but inevitably, some of them still had that alternative rock and grunge influence. So, for example, "Why Don't You Want Me"? Where did that come from?
I mean, I'd say it really that song has influences from the 90s grunge era. I think you can really hear it, that it has
Yeah,
those old school vibes to it.
it does, man.
Um, and like I said before, I think that's just something that has been following and that I've had within me since a very early age because that's what I grew up listening to, and it's some of my major influences are from the grunge era, and so I think naturally those songs will just be created. I will continuously make songs that within that type of sound. Um, I'd say "Why Don't You Want Me" is one of those songs that we made like in maybe 2 hours. Like it was super quickly.
Hmm.
So I wrote the guitar part. The guitar part I actually wrote at home, um, and I really feel like it has that grittiness to it. Like the chord progression is quite different, and especially the fourth chord is not really expected, I'd say, in
Hmm.
that sense. So I really think that when I managed to write that composition, it really, yeah, just something it's sparked. I was like, okay, so this we have to make this into a song. And when I brought it in front of my producer, we really just who also, by the way, is very influenced by the grunge musicians of the 90s.
Yeah,
I think it just made sense for us, and we started adding the really hardcore drums, but also trying to make a roller coaster out of it, like we talked about in the beginning of the cast, like just starting off pretty mellow, then once the chorus hits, then it's you know bring for everything, just get it out there, like the guitars and the bass and just the grittiness to it. Um, yeah.
definitely, man. Yeah, there's a lot of that grunge influence in that song. I could see it. It's
Mm.
nice that you're sort of vibing with the producer on the type of vibes that you wanted the song to have, like
Yeah, I
the
mean, I'd say it's
general
it's
theme.
it's super, important to be able to work with different people and like just be able to communicate what's happening within your head when you're able to express that and create something with someone else. Then you're allowed to really uh, uh, create something truly unique.
For sure, man. It must be nice.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's amazing. It's a great feeling, man.
Yeah, and going on to the second song I wanted to talk about, How Would I Know?
Yeah,
Different vibe.
that's
Kind of same, but
kind of
different.
same, but still different. That one's a little more intense, I'd say.
Yeah.
Still has that roller coaster type of vibe.
Feels very angry.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it is.
Feels
When
resentful.
Yeah, when we made the song, uh, like we wanted to make it almost like hitting a wall,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I see it.
yeah, so and I really think we succeeded with that when making this song,
Hmm.
uh, as well as bringing some of the old influences, combining it with some of the newer influences. One thing that we do that I'd say is pretty. I've never heard anyone do it, at least within the music that we make, is adding 808s to. We basically add 808s to grunge beats,
Yeah.
which is and synths, which is
Totally
some
different, it's all totally different types.
totally different. You're combining 90s grunge with today's 808s and the heaviness of those, and I think really when that combination just it flips a switch in people's heads, and I
Yeah.
think that's a very uh
It's like seeing red paint and blue paint for the first time, and you
Yeah,
see it make purple, and your mind is blown. Where you're just like, "Holy shit! I didn't know it could do that."
yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much. That's a good comparison, actually. Uh, so I said that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to really blend different styles and create just something completely different. And I think that's really what you should aim to do as a musician.
yeah,
Like we
man.
talked about before, you'll always have different influences, but when you're able to combine that with something that's close to heart and that's maybe uh, newer and of a newer sound, then suddenly you have created something that's even newer than that.
Yeah.
And that's when you're on the right path, I'd say.
Yeah, cool. Somewhere in the end. That's literally my personal favorite. It's
Yeah,
something
cool.
like it has that little like rhyme in the background where it's just like the general theme of the song that but then there is also a light sounds like this light sort of trapeze like walking sort of rhythm in the
Mm-hmm.
background as well, so that when
Mm-hmm.
that main sort of line that you have going through for the song, when that fades out, you
Mm-hmm.
then have this like soothing, like calming sort of atmosphere. But then the vocals come back and they improvise upon one another. So every single time that the vocals come into the song, it's like it's a little bit more. So the first time you would have dun, 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 but then the next time you have dun, 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 and it comes
Mm-hmm.
back and it goes dun, 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 and then there's something also at the end. So every single time that the vocals come back into the song, it feels like there's a new meaning to it. There's something new added, and obviously that goes along with the lyrics, and you could dissect that essentially forever,
Mm-hmm.
but it also adds just like a completely different vibe. So I've never seen a song where it does something where it there is that sort of chorus where the chorus is something playing in the background, but every single time the main vocals and the main instrumental comes in, it just keeps adding and adding and adding to it. It keeps exponentially growing until it sort of just like gets a little bit of that feisty like anger towards the end, and then it fades out.
Mm-hmm.
What how the hell did you make this?
I'm a genius, man. No,
No,
I'm
how did you make this? I'm
I'm,
serious.
no, I'm just playing. I mean, starting off writing that song started off with the, the basic, pretty much bass line.
Yeah,
That's fairly simple, but I feel like um, from the start, it really had, that deepness to it, and the
yeah,
way it really like resonated with me as a songwriter was like, damn, this is something different.
yeah,
Uh, and basically writing the lyrics. I wrote the lyrics at this. I always write the lyrics and the uh, instrumentals at the same time to really combine and just get all the puzzle pieces together.
yeah,
Um, that song is obviously a very sad one.
yeah.
It's
It's a lot way more mellow than all of your other music.
it's super mellow, and I wrote it at a pretty, difficult point in my life, as I think
Hmm.
you kind of can hear within the song and the meaning of the lyrics.
Hmm.
Um, and really to
Yeah,
start
it's
with,
very much about like death, the lyrics.
it's basically it's only about death.
It's literally only about like it's the phrase why does this all matter for if we all die at the end summarized into a song.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in that way it's terrible, it's so sad. But I felt that way in
Hmm.
my life, and I've it's something that I've struggled with, I'd say.
Hmm.
And really, like I say in my YouTube bio, I manage life through music.
That's what that was reminding me of just now. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
You can see
basically,
that being like parroted into the
yeah,
lyrics.
right. So I'd say it's one of those where I just try to pour out my thoughts and my feelings into a song,
Very
and
autobiographical, yeah.
yeah, correct. So in the end, I think it really, really, it helped me to just get better.
Yeah.
And I will probably always, I think, as most people have, we go into times in our lives where things are really difficult.
Hmm.
And I think especially just realizing that it is a part of life. I'd say, going to into difficult periods, but it's also something that's very important. And I
Hmm.
think that it's during
It
the
teaches you a
hard,
lot, man.
yeah, and it's during the hard times that you really get to experience life.
Hmm.
And when you've done that a couple of times, you find different strategies and ways to cope. For me, it's music. For me, it's just writing really songs that really I can resonate with at the time.
Hmm.
I think maybe for you, it's writing books, it's doing podcasts,
Hmm.
and such.
Definitely.
And I think the older you get, the more strategies and theories you will find. But essentially, when it comes to this song, that's just basically me talking and singing about just a very hard experience in my life, and
Yeah.
those
It's
those
very
were the
nice.
melodies that really,
Yeah, it's
got
very
together.
nice and it's very useful to narrow down exactly how do you feel and then narrow down in addition to that how exactly
For
you want to
sure,
express it.
for
And I
sure.
feel like in this song it's my favorite because you sort of made up for the lyrics, you made up for that void that you kind of sort of feel and emphasize with listening to it with that rhythmic melody in the background where it feels very, very relatable. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure like anyone that's ever felt that numbness can relate to this song, not only because of the lyrics, because lyrics can only tell you so much. I know very
Mm,
well from writing prose that putting words on a page is very difficult to put an image in people's hearts and minds, but it has that sort of theme of relatability to it because someone can so easily grasp the kind of theme this song is going for. So that was really
right.
cool. And I also noticed that we talked about the diversification of your music, but
Mm,
it all definitely has that one grunge theme, and that falls into place when you combine all these different releases that you've made throughout 2025, because it goes from that one mood of I want to get drunk with my homies and fuck shit up
mm.
to I'm really depressed and sad now and I need to go to bed. Like these
Yeah.
are these are like two totally different moods
Yeah.
that you can see how often they go together, not only in life but in music,
Yeah.
because you still know that it's a song made by you. Like you can instantly tell. I don't know what
Mm,
it is because the themes and the instrumentals are definitely different. Use various
mm.
kinds of techniques. But I guess the general pacing and the BPM of the song and your vocals, you can instantly like tell, oh, this is gonna be one of those like more distinct dissident types of songs and melodies. You can feel that inspiration come through. So that spark
Yeah.
that a lot of artists lose at the beginning, you definitely still haven't lost that yet.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. And then the final song that I wanted to talk about before we end the interview was Hate Me. Obviously,
Yeah.
similar to Somewhere in the End.
Yeah.
But dude, that big of frustration. That song made me feel frustrated, and in a good way. It just made me feel
Yeah.
frustrated.
Yeah.
So how was that different from making the previous two? How would I know in Somewhere in the End?
I'd say, Hate Me is one of those songs that at the time when writing it, like always when I write songs, I uh, connected with some type of feeling. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a feeling I experienced at that time. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, it's something that I have experienced before that has helped me develop, and
Mm-hmm.
that has, as I've gotten my head around it, I've been able to write songs about it as well. And Hate
Mm-hmm.
Me is one of those songs. Uh, and I guess essentially, Hate Me is about just heartbreak and uh, losing someone that you really loved and maybe still love.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's one of those. I really think not only the lyrics but just the general sound of the song. It starts off very calmly
Mm-hmm.
um, until the final chorus, where everything really, like a lot of my songs, like all the guitars and everything is added in the end, just to really show that frustration, which heartbreaks often comes with, you know.
Yeah, it feels like it's building up towards the end.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I guess the end is the final crash out before
Yeah,
started to getting better.
yeah.
Um,
The crash out before you get over it is, I believe, something everyone can relate to. But that song
yeah.
really has like a nice sort of vibe where you sort of feel it,
Yeah,
where it's
yeah.
relatable and because it's an emotion that so many people commonly go for, especially associated with heartbreak, it
Mm,
has that energy where you can feel it building up. And it's
mm,
sort of like the sound of like thumping feet when you're at some sort of like a concert or a rally or at the theater, or there's just a sort of build up to something when you're in the movie theater or the cinema too. And there's like a
mm,
scene in a movie, and like let's say it's a horror film, right? And it's a horror film, and it's all quiet, and somebody's like looking for something, and it's all dark, and you hear
mm.
that like it's like tut 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 tut. You're just like, oh,
Yeah.
I better look away because something's about to jump at me, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Same sort of feel that I actually got throughout that song. No, dude,
Nice.
that's really cool. So, what can you tell us about your upcoming releases, stuff that you have planned for the future, especially
Sure.
as your audience grows? Can you tell us a little bit more about when you primarily plan to start moving on to these later stages of, having live shows? When do you hope to accomplish all of this, and the stuff that you have in mind for your future musical career and trajectory?
Sure. I'm continuously releasing music. I'm trying to release at least one song each month. I think that's a pretty good of
It
just
balances out. It
frequency.
balances
Yeah,
out.
it
Yeah,
balances out. And like I said
frequency.
before, me and my team we are pretty efficient when it comes to creating music. And
Hmm.
being efficient, we also have the privilege of being able to put music out very continuously.
Yeah.
And I think just by releasing more, you're able to obtain a bigger audience and to really build this fan base even wider and really get it out to the world. So I'm gonna release my next song the 17th of October,
Nice.
is the plan. And like I said, just continuously release a song each month. Like we talked a little about before, I'm starting to get some merch together and gonna start selling that. And also have giveaways and so on, because I really want to give back to the fans that have supported me from early on. um, and when it comes to having live shows, that's something that's on a top priority right now. Probably gonna start out locally within Gothenburg just to really get the band rolling. But
Hmm.
then we're also planning a smaller tour in Europe. Probably gonna go. We don't have any specific locations yet, but probably looking at Germany, Poland actually as well.
Nice.
Uh, uh, Going to Prague, I'd say.
Prague is
Italy,
nice. Yeah.
yeah, it's a really nice city, and a lot of listeners in Prague as well. So shout out to those.
Shout out.
Um, and also, we're going to Italy, Spain. Basically, Europe has been we started to grow really quickly in this territory. So it's yeah, I'm hyped, man. It's gonna be sick. But that's basically on the agenda for now. Just reaching out to more people and getting the music out there, of course.
Cool. It's always good to keep people excited. That's always the aim that you sort of have to go for in this new
For
social
sure,
media age.
for sure.
All right, cool. Well, we know where to find you. We know where to find your music. And Hugo Daniel, thank you so much for coming on to the Scorpion Movement podcast. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you so much, man. I'm really thankful.